Good morning. My name's Rob. I'm an alcoholic. Okay. So this is from Into Action. It works. It really does. We alcoholics are undisciplined. So we let God discipline us in the simple way we have just outlined. But this is not all. There is action and more action. Faith without works is dead. The next chapter is entirely devoted to step 12. Without further ado, we have our friend. I told him he was Craig when he first got here. Clif on 10 and 11.
Hey everybody, I'm Clif Gooding. I'm a grateful alcoholic. I'm always like to make a big splash at a conference. I came here and then Friday night, Rob had picked me up. He and Alan picked me up from the airport on Friday, and I was down here. We were waiting for Dolly to get kicking, and he comes up and he says, I'm just in my street clothes. He says, hey, you got to go on in an hour. I go, no, dude, I'm Saturday night. He goes, no, you're tonight. He goes, oh, you're not Craig. So quite the impression I make when I show up. But, that's okay. It's all right every once in a while to be misidentified, particularly in a lineup. That's good. So anyway, I'm sober since August the 15th of 2001. For that short amount of time, I'm as grateful as I know how to be. I got a sponsor. His name is Bob B. in St. Paul, Minnesota. I have a home group. It's the Altered Boys in Oklahoma City, my AA stats. So you guys have them now. So thanks again to the committee, Vince and Deb, for the tireless work. I know there's a lot of work that goes on to these things. I mean, we show up for these things and we have expectations, how it should look, how it should go. Like, everything needs to be humming when we get here, man. If anything's out of place, we get pissed. We have expectations, mad, about all that stuff. But here's what I can tell you about that. I've served on some conference committees, and there used to be a guy in Oklahoma City. His name was Mike Krebs. He's gone to the big meeting. They call him the Creeper. He used to say that alcoholics are the upper crust of the mentally ill. So there you go. If you've ever worked on a committee, they're down in the pudding somewhere, not the crust. I promise you. But everything this weekend has gone really smoothly, and my hats are off to the committee for a great work, because I know you've been getting together all year to make this work, and God bless you. It's hard work and sometimes thankless work, but you guys have done a really, really great job. So thank you for everything this weekend. It's been just tremendous. And I want to particularly thank Dolly, Ali, Katie, Ralph, Leslie, Craig, for their dedication and inspiration to this conference this weekend and delivering really heartfelt messages. And thank you guys so much for inspiring a knucklehead like me. It's going to be Waterworks Day, just so you know. Inspire a knucklehead like me. Sometimes I think about how did I get here? And I don't mean here. I just mean how did I get here? I'm a big believer that the sign of God is you'll be led where you did not plan to go. And oftentimes I'm amazed in Alcoholics Anonymous at the life that I've been given. And perhaps you're amazed at the life that you've been given in Alcoholics Anonymous. It certainly wasn't what I deserved when I washed ashore to Alcoholics Anonymous, nor was the life I lived the one I believed I was going to get. The life I lived before coming to Alcoholics Anonymous, it wasn't as if I was born and thought, what I really want to do is burn my entire life to the ground, in the hopes of one day I make it to Alcoholics Anonymous. That was not. I had a vision, and I'm sure some of you do too, had as kids a vision of what my life might look like. I had hopes and dreams, and I had certainly thoughts about what life might hold for me. I think that's natural when we grow up. We have somewhere in there I took a hard left. And, great talks this weekend about the illness of alcoholism, the spiritual malady, the malady which drives everything in my life. If we said this room encompassed the volume of alcoholism, if we could define it and say this room is the volume of alcoholism, this light right here would be the drinking part, I believe. That everything else about Alcoholics Anonymous has to do with how do I live life out there? How do I do life one day at a time? Because I don't know how to do that. I mean, I just simply do not know how to do it. And it's not because it's a lack of effort on people's part. I was born of a good family. My mom was the only girl with 6 brothers. 5 of those died of alcoholism. My mom, if I saw her drink 5 drinks in my life, I might be lying to you. She'd have a hot toddy every once in a while when she was sick. I tell her, you're a damn carrier. That's what you were, you know. My dad was one of 6 brothers and sisters, 1 sister, all brothers. His father died when he was 16 years old. All those people wanted for me was the best. I mean, if I saw my dad drink, I mean, that day that I drank that beer with my brother on that hot summer day, my dad got a can of beer and drank it and drank half of it. Not alcoholic, right? I mean, if I saw him drink 5 drinks my whole life, I might be lying. Those are people who taught me what our book talks about. If I just had a better philosophy of life, if I just had a better moral code, they gave me all that. It's not like I'm some kid, some wild heathen kid that grew up in the hills of some kind of wild Indian in southeast Oklahoma, living on the reservation, you know, just taking off and my life's crazy. No, I had good instructions. I had people who cared about me and loved me, although I cannot see that. My perception and how I believe it needed to look for me was certainly different than it was. But those people loved me, and they taught me right from wrong, and they gave me that good moral code. And if that was sufficient to hold me, if a better philosophy of life, if a better moral code, I better put this out so I remember where I am. If a better moral code would have done the trick, you'd have a different speaker today. I think that holds true for a lot of us. I mean, I know right from wrong. How many people in this room know that lying is wrong? How many people lied? Just keep your hands up, for God's sake. How many people know that stealing's wrong? But how many people stole? How many people knew cheating was wrong, but you cheated? Right? Yeah, I know all that. But see, I lack power to put that into practical application. When we talk about this power greater of ourselves, and we talk about a power that relieves us from our alcoholism, I believe a big piece of that relieving me from my alcoholism is relieving me from this malady, the connection to the power. That without a connection to the power, I'm still flailing through life. I'm still trying to generate false power. False power. That's where character defects are born. I lie to somebody, I get away with it, I feel a sense of power. Got one over on them. I cheat somebody out of something, tell you about it, I get a sense of power. I steal something from my friends, I'm not that kind of friend, hell, I help them look for it, but yet I get a sense of power, you know. I get this sense of power, so I try to manufacture false power here. Activate that through my character defects. They give me a sense. Drinking gives me a sense of ease and comfort. Activating and using my character defects give me a sense of false power. And I come to rely on it. The trouble with like drinking, because we eventually sober up. The trouble with activation of character defects, they lose their power. I can only tell the story so long and it has juice to it. Eventually I got to do something else to get more juice. And I'm in this vicious cycle of life like I am in drinking. This drinking, this obsession, spree, remorse, repeat. And I'm in this cycle. And if you just remove drinking from me, the cycle will look the same without the booze. I'm in a sensuous series of sprees of character defects over and over and over again, trying to tap some kind of power, trying to harness some kind of power that will allow me to move through life. I've assigned all of you roles. When you don't fill my roles, you're just out. I'm not a guy that if I have a relationship with anybody, but romantic relationships are always the best to look at because they're the most easy to see in my life, maybe not yours. I see some cute girl, I go up, I have a conversation with her. Within the first 15 seconds, I have her whole life planned out. Just like that. Just like that. Have it planned out. Take her hostage, go underground for about 60 days, eventually pop up because you got to get back to life. Come back to life, and so I begin to notice things. Katie talked about this yesterday. It was beautiful. Kind, gracious, try to get him to move where I need him to move. I come into a room like this, I notice she doesn't stand as close to me as the roll calls for. Yeah, you identify. That's when you laugh, you identify. Maybe snicker. They won't notice if you do that. So I try to help her. Right? I also notice if we took all the women out of here that she doesn't take my hand as quickly when just the guys are around. So I try to help her. I'll be kind, gracious. But if she doesn't get it, I'll just be a jerk to get her to move where I need her to move, to be what I need her to be, to help her play the role that I've assigned her. And, eventually what happens is that she loses her star power. And when she loses her star power, what a guy like I do is I go get understudies. I don't know anything else to do. I can't set her down and have a conversation. Look, this is just not working out for whatever reason. It's been great, but we're just not clicking. Because, my God, nobody clicks with me. That's the trouble. Nobody clicks with me. And if she eventually finds out about understudies and she says, I'm out of here, as she should, and you know what I say? Good. Because she didn't get it. She didn't get it. And then I have the fear that grasps every alcoholic at some period in their life, or maybe the fear that has gripped you from the very beginning. I'm going to be all alone the rest of my life. That terrifies an alcoholic, doesn't it? Particularly one that's relying on false power. Particularly one that needs to manufacture power to have this idea that I'm all alone. What would that look like? Oh, my God. But I did that with my parents, my friends. It's so easy to see in our romantic relationship, but I've done that with everybody. I've assigned people roles and they've let me down. Searching for power that I can't seem to grasp. And only through complete defeat before I get to Alcoholics Anonymous, am I willing to consider any kind of alternative to my own will, to my own self-will. We know when we come to Alcoholics Anonymous, I think one of the greatest miracles of Alcoholics Anonymous is not the first meeting we attend, but the second, when we come back. Because something happened at their first meeting, some story was told, spirituality is not an intellectual exercise. Spirituality is not learned based on information. Faith and hope are not based on information. What happens is we hear stories of somebody and it resonates in our heart and we build a little bit of hope based not on what I understand but what I feel. In my heart, I feel there's some hope here. I come back. Come back to AA. And this idea that I have to be completely defeated. There's a word that Bill uses in our book, the first 100 used, that has a great deal of spiritual context to it. I often think we just chump change it. And it's a spiritual term that I believe is very significant for people like us. And it's the word abandon. Now, if you've got an old junk car and you take it to the salvage yard and you leave it there, you've abandoned it. You coming back to get it? No. I'm leaving it. I'm abandoning it. I'm gone. I'm leaving it. I'm not coming back for that. It's an old junk car. I'm done with it. I got stuff in my house I don't use anymore. Big trash day comes. Put it on the curb. I'm abandoning it. I'm letting them take it. I'm done with it. Abandon ourselves. We abandon ourselves. It's a spiritual term. The book asks me, it calls upon me to abandon myself to God. I'm going to leave it right here and I'm walking away. Because left to my own devices, what has happened to me? I'm smooth out. Crushed once more by self-imposed crisis I can't postpone nor evade. And here I am once again, flat, flat again, abandon. And I'm going to tell you, I'm a guy that doesn't practice abandonment perfectly. I wish I could. I wish I could just say, I'm abandoning myself to God, and it would just be, unicorns and lollipops from now on, right? But that's not reality. Why? I'm born of self-will. Why? Selfish and self-centered. That's the root of my problem. I'll grab things back. I'll leave it, but I'll grab it back. When I think about what our textbook says, that selfish and self-centered, that's the root of my problem. I think about, and I've noticed some out here, big trees. Some big trees. Now, in Oklahoma, we got big trees. In Texas, we got big trees. We're tornado country. And I think about those big trees, how they sustain these tremendous winds and storms that come through there. And they just hold. When I think about that, I think about what kind of root system they must have, how deep that must go to hold those trees when the big storms come. And when I think about selfishness, self-centered, it's the root of my problems. I think, how deep are the roots of selfishness, self-centeredness in me? The book says we never be rid of self entirely. We can't. Can't be rid of self entirely. What somebody said yesterday, we're going to come back 3 days after you're dead to make sure, kind of deal, right? That's maybe how I know that selfishness has left me. But this root system in me goes deep. But I come here and I'm willing. I find some willingness. In the spiritual appendix, it talks about willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness. I often hear that misquoted. Intergroups and the drunk junk people have taken it and they think it's real cute. They turned it to how? Honesty, open-minded, willingness. But I want you to think about this with me for a minute. It's not the way the founders wrote it. They wrote it willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness. When you came here, could you be honest right out of the chute? I can't be honest out of the chute. I can be willing. Open-minded. I can't get here. I don't get really honest and really open-minded and then willing. That's just not how it worked for me. I came here, I got willing. Then I was willing to share a little bit with somebody. And then through the process of steps, I began to get more and more open-minded about my life. It's not how, it's who. Who does this for me? Who puts this together for me? It's certainly nothing that I've done. It's not how. It makes a cute acronym. But the real truth is it's who. And I think they knew exactly what they were doing in the spiritual appendix when they talk about this power, this unsuspected inner resource we tap into here. Who? Who is it? The book says that's the deal. It's the search for the power. It's not the finding of the power. It's the seeking of the power. It's never about the finding. I was down in Georgia a few years ago. My buddy Randy picked me up. I was doing a men's retreat down there. And he picked me up. He said, Clif, on the way, we're going to stop in this little town. And we're going to do an AA meeting there before we go. I said, that's great. I'm in. I'm not anti-AA. Sure, why not? So, and it was this little bitty white church. It's just beautiful, off of a city square. Just loved it. It was beautiful. And we went in, and there was this one little lady there. And she's probably 80 years old. And she looked up, she said, and I don't do a very good Georgia accent, so please forgive me. She goes, what are you boys doing here? And without missing a beat, Randy looked at her and said, we're here salting. And she said, salting? He said, yes, ma'am. It says right there, salt through prayer and meditation. We're here salting. That's what we're doing. So I hope y'all are here salting this morning, right? I hope we're salting. We're looking for the power. People who show up on Sunday morning, or just people who come to these things generally, I believe, are seekers. You know, even if you're voluntold to be here, you become a seeker, right? You come here and it becomes infectious. It's the culture. It's the spirit. People have done and it becomes attractive, and you want what they got. You know, overpowering urge against your better judgment. You know, there's a need to stay here. I was talking to one of my friends this morning, and I was reminded, in the conversation, I was reminded about, if you come to Alcoholics Anonymous, man, you're home. We have nowhere to refer you down to, man. You know, If you're here with us, we don't say, oh, we can't help you. You got to go down there, right? This is it. Where the hell would we go? I mean, if we don't come here, where would we go? Where would we go? Right? Sawton, here to do that. I talked about last night this idea of becoming awake in Alcoholics Anonymous. It's the things that happen. It's one of the greatest promises I believe in our book. The book is full of promises. We sometimes, I believe, we get hung up on what I call the foo-foo promises in step 9, and not to say that they're not wonderful promises. They certainly are. But the third step has some beautiful promises on page 62 that Katie talked about. We're at a book study that we do that I've been part of since 2007. And we were on that paragraph Tuesday night. We spent a whole hour on that paragraph, looking at it, dissecting, talking. And one of the guys I sponsor says, this is pretty radical, what it calls for. And he said, it's pretty radical. And I thought about that, and I thought, it is pretty radical what it says in here. And it talks about the contract we make with God, being all-powerful, right? He provides what we need if there's a conditional piece of the contract. Lawyer, diagnose these things. If we stay close to him, perform his work well. And it says if we do that, some interesting things. Established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves, our little plans and designs. Now, if you're new in Alcoholics Anonymous, that's radical. More and more we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life. If you're here, you're new or you're nearly new, selfish is self-centered to the extreme, that's radical. As we felt new power flow in, we enjoyed peace of mind. Oh my God. If we can get the mind to quiet for just a moment, that's radical. It's radical for a guy like me. As we discovered we could face life successfully, as we became conscious of his presence, we began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, and the hereafter. We were reborn. That's radical. But why wouldn't it be radical? What we're the recipients of is, I believe, not just grace, radical grace. Radical grace, man. You think about it. What it took for people like us to get here today. I'm amazed that I'm here. Not here, that I'm here. Radical grace. This idea that somehow at, 1 second, I can't think of anything but drinking. How do I drink? How do I not drink? And in the next blink of an eye, the obsession is removed from me. That is radical grace, brothers. I'm telling you, that is a radical grace. So when the promises come for us, they may seem to a guy like me to be radical, but it's radical grace that we have. And all of these promises are backed by what I believe is the key piece of Alcoholics Anonymous. They're backed by a power greater than myself. And when we come to Alcoholics Anonymous, we go through the process which the speakers this weekend have done a beautiful job of laying out the path to the power. The purpose of the book is for you to enable you to find a power greater than yourself, which you could live. They've laid out a beautiful path. They've touched on the ideas that's transformed their lives, the information that they've got that moved them forward, that propelled them forward, how they came in and established a relationship with this power in their life. I'm a big believer that information plus application is really important. A lot of people say that brings about transformation, and I don't argue with that. But I believe for me there's one other step that's necessary. I believe information plus application plus collaboration with the power brings about transformation. In and of myself, left to my own power, there's nothing I can do. We've talked about this change that happens. It's not really change, it's a change, it's a transformation. Be clear about that. Not change, transformation. I'm not the guy that walked into Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm not the guy I was, I hope, a year ago. I hope I'm not the guy I was a month ago. If you're like me, perhaps you are to some extent. All my life, I've looked at you and I've compared myself to you. The only guy I ever need to compare myself to again was the guy I was yesterday, period. Period. Am I doing any better today? I think that's my task here. Am I doing any better? And 10 and 11 are the things that propel me to do better today. To do better today. Two places I'm never comfortable. In the moment, right here, right now. Man, I am uncomfortable in the moment. You know why? In the moment, and right here, right now, I don't fit in, I don't measure up, I'm different from. Yeah, Scotty, right? I'm separate from all that. I can't be in that moment. And through a process of steps, what happened, I established a relationship with a power that gives me opportunities to do the thing I've never been able to do. Live in the right here, right now. Because I'm going to tell you something. Today, in this moment, right here, right now, I'm okay. And I'm going to assure you of something in this moment right here. No matter what's going on in your life, you're okay. You're okay. I wish you could see you the way I see you this morning. You're absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. From my perspective, when I look at you today, I'm not looking at you comparing it. I wish, why not, all that stuff. Today, when I look at you, what I know for a fact is that we are children of God and we're anchored here and moving forward with one common goal. Certainly to stay sober, but to develop that relationship with the power. Sometimes I think when I think about my relationship with God in 10 and 11, I think I need to reflect upon what God has done for me prior to coming to Alcoholics Anonymous. Can I find the spiritual experiences in my life prior to AA? Can I look back through my life and point to say, there's God's hand, there's God's hand, there's God's hand? Because we're always focused on the spiritual experience here that would give us the, wait, but what about how God is taking care of us in our life prior to coming to Alcoholics Anonymous? Because I believe if I can identify in my life the spiritual experiences, if I can find God's hand in my life prior to coming to Alcoholics Anonymous, it bolsters and certainly leverages my decision in step 3 to turn my will and my life over to care to that power. If I can find those other areas of my life. It's not like suddenly we washed ashore, we stopped drinking and God showed up. My sponsor always has this saying. He says that Ralph and I are certainly familiar with. He says, what you're looking for, you're looking with. That what you need, you've always had. The power that we so desperately are trying to figure out resides within. I don't need to try to change the picture. I need to change the inside, but that is contrary to what out there teaches us. If you buy this car, if you get this house, if you look like this, then you'll be happy. Right? Sell it. Advertising people have figured this out a long time ago. They figured out the malady in people. We'll sell them on the ideas. If they get this, they'll be happy. Wall Street's figured this out. They figured this out a long time ago. And I'll buy it because I think if I get that, I'll be okay. A guy like me, I just lap it up. If I get that, I'll be happy until it gets a scratch. Then it gets a scratch, and I'm not happy with it anymore because it's failed me again. I don't know it's an inside job. When I was a little boy, when we lived in West Texas, and my family moved to Oklahoma, we lived in this, my dad was a VP of a chemical company out there, agricultural chemical company, and we were moving home, and we lived in this big 2-story house, and they had this big refrigerator freezer, the stand-up kind. I don't even know if they make them anymore. They're so dangerous. They do? Okay. I ain't shopping for them, so I don't know. I'll tell you the story, you'll know why. So they had this big, refrigerator freezer. It's unplugged, and everybody's moving. I'm a little kid. I'm 4 or 5 years old. That looks like a good place to hide. So I just crawl in the bottom, and somebody shut the door on me. Of course, my mama panics, and she looks all over the house for me. She found me. I'm drenched with sweat. My Fritos are all over spilled. That I got this little bag of Fritos. It's everywhere. And I'm starting to turn gray. pull me out of there, crying. When I was in high school, I was a bull rider. See, this should have been enough right there. I should have told you that. And you guys would have said, boy, you are insane, man. So, I was small for my age. Now, I can't explain this because some things are beyond explanation. Just going to tell you. When I tell you this story, you'll think, that doesn't add up. And it doesn't. But I was so small as a kid. I'm the smallest kid in my school. Listen, I'm the kid that was picked on, last for everything. That's me. It doesn't make me alcoholic. Didn't do a lot for my self-esteem, but not alcoholic, right? So I was so small that when I was in the 8th grade, they maybe played on the 7th grade basketball team. I'm so small, right? And my mom and dad wouldn't let me play football because I was too small. But they let me get on the back of a 1,500-pound bull. Don't ask me how that works. There's no logic to that, right? But I'm a country kid. I grew up on horses. I mean, that's my game. So, in the summer of 75 or 76, I'm 15, 16 years old. A buddy of mine anyway, we're practicing. His dad's got a bunch of bulls, and we're over there riding, and we're just in this. There's no plowed. It was just a dirt field, man. Built a little corral, and we're riding. And I get off this bull, and he turns on me. And he comes and hits me. And he spins me, and I go across through my neck, and I just come up on my knees. And it's like an electric shock goes through me. And my neck just immediately ballooned up. And I think, I pulled all my muscles in my neck. And I go home, and I lay around for a week. And my mom and dad said, we need to take you to the hospital. I said, no, I'm not. It's okay. I think I've just sprained all these muscles. Finally, on the Friday after this happened on Sunday, I said, I can't take the pain anymore. I need to go to the hospital. You go to the hospital, and if you say I have a heart or a neck issue, you move right to the front of the line. And they got me, and they started sticking all these pins in me to see if I had feeling. X-rayed my neck, came back in, sat my mom down, and said, I'm going to tell you something about your son. He's had a fracture between the first and second vertebrae. Out of 100 people, 98 will die. One of them will be a quadriplegic for the rest of their life. And he didn't say this, but this is what I heard. One knucklehead will walk away, and that's your son. Right? And I spent 6 weeks in the hospital. I had these dents in my head because I had these tongs that they put in you to hold your neck straight back in the old days, striker frames. I laid flat on my back. They'd come and spin me every few hours so I wouldn't be on the back. I've got a little bit of a flat head too, but for lots of reasons. But anyway, I laid in that hospital bed for 6 weeks cussing God. Why? Because I found something I was sort of good at, and he took it away from me. And I sat, Ralph, 6 weeks in that hospital bed cussing God, making the deal with him. Here's the deal, pal. You just tend to your stuff, I'll tend to mine. When I graduated from high school, my dad called me one morning. I'd been out drinking. We'd been down in Texas drinking, and we came home, and I was home late. My dad called me and said, hey, I need you to bring something into town. Can you bring it in? And I'm drunk. But I get up and go. I had to go over this overpass to get into town because I grew up right on the Texas line. I had to go over this overpass for the next, and then 8 miles, and I'm in town. And over the overpass was a weigh station, where the trucks come and they pull in. Well, apparently on this day there was a truck parked on the shoulder, and I go over the top of the hill and I black out. And I hit that semi-truck on its outside corner in the middle of my pickup truck, and it spins around, and I land in the middle of the highway. The engine is in my passenger seat, and all I got was a busted lip and a little scar here. 3 wine bottles roll out and break. Boone's Farm, Strawberry Hill, by the way. So. I didn't know wine came with corks for a long time. Unnecessary, by the way, to come with corks, but nonetheless. When I was in college, I was in a fraternity, and I was out drinking, and homecoming's a big deal at Oklahoma State University. It's a big deal. They roll out. I mean, we have all these house decorations. Brands itself as the largest homecoming in the nation. And it probably is. They come roll me out. I've been drinking all night. They come roll me out to come down and help to pump the chicken wire. I don't want to do that. I'm not a joiner, by the way. I'm in a fraternity, but I'm not really a joiner. So they get me up, a couple of my pledge brothers, and we're down doing it, and they say, hey, you need to go over and help those guys move that scaffolding, and I'm over here doing chicken wire, so I go, okay. So I kind of slow in my roll over there, and these guys pick it up. There's 6 guys on the scaffolding. 4 of them have tennis shoes, 2 have cowboy boots. It accidentally tips hit a highline wire. The guys that had tennis shoes got blown away from it because the electricity blew them away, but the guys had cowboy boots. The leather came through and stuck, and I watched those guys die in my front yard of that fraternity house. Why am I here? On August the 15th, 2001, I'm thinking, how do I drink and how do I not, how do I stay sober? How do I drink and how do I stay sober? And the voice says to me, if you don't do something different today, you're going to die. I believe there's some chances in my life. I believe in God's grace. I believe in God's mercy. It's unmerited, but it's radical. It's radical. And I walk out that door that day after hearing that message, and Don says, how are you doing? I give him a different answer. Seconds and inches, as Norm used to say. Radical grace. Can I find the spiritual experiences in my life prior to Alcoholics Anonymous that will bolster the experience that I have here? Can I find the breadcrumbs in my life, the trail of God's work in my life that bolsters my experience here? I certainly have. And I'm suggesting to you, if you look through your life, you'll find those meaningful coincidences in your life. God's way of remaining anonymous for us. We have an awakening here. We come awake. The trick is to stay awake. 10 and 11 are the real miracle of how we stay awake here. Step 10 calls for me to do certain things. It calls me to watch. Where do I have to be in order to watch? I've got to be in the moment. It's the one place I've never been able to be, but yet step 10 calls for me to be in the moment. If I'm going to watch, I've got to pay attention. You ever notice? Anybody here ever walk home from school when you were a kid that had crossing guards? Had those people out that, I learned a lot about step 10 thinking about my experience with crossing guards. If you think about it, because you come up to, you're walking, you're a little kid, you're walking, and what happens, you stop, the crossing guard stops you. And what do? You stop, you look, then you go. Step 10 is a lot like that. We come here, we stop. Why do I stop? Step 10 asks me to do certain things, it asks me to watch for some things. Selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. If I stop, I gain perspective. I can see what's really happening in my life. When I stop, I have an opportunity to do that, gain perspective. And then when I gain some perspective, then I can take some action. I can go, stop, look, go. I think that's what 10 and 11 calls for a guy like me to do, stop, look, go. If I'm finding selfishness, resentment, fear in my life, dishonesty, I need to stop. The step calls on me to watch for these things. It calls for me to be in the moment. If I'm in the moment, I can't go back to sleep. If I'm in the moment practicing the thing, what I'm telling you is a perfect idea. I'm a sleeper. I'm a power napper in AA. I'm going to tell you that. Straight up. I'm sharing what's happened for me, but the more I can practice this, the better, the more awake I can become. Because the more awake I can come, I see these things. I'm able to see it in my own life when I'm being dishonest, when I'm being resentful, when I'm being fearful, when I'm being selfish. If I'm not paying attention, I miss it all, right? If I get caught, why is that so important? If I get caught up in dishonesty, if I get caught up in resentment, what happens? I go inside. And immediately when I go inside, what I do? I miss everything. Why? I'm consumed with self again. I'm back to me. Back to me. I remember about 5 years ago when I asked Bob to sponsor me, I went to St. Paul and spent about 4 days with him. And I'll sit down with him, and we spent about 5 hours in the conversation. I basically just did a 5th step with him, got him current on my life, where I was at that time. And at the end of the conversation, he said, well, Clif, you're just self-directed again. That's hard to hear, a man of my stature, that I'm self-directed again. Me who thought so well of myself, as Bill would say. I'm self-directed again, and I don't even know. It's so subtle. Self-direction here is so subtle. That's why it's so important for me to be reminded, hey, I got to watch, because I'll get self-directed. It's so easy to get off path here. I was giving a talk one time down in Florida. I was talking about sailing from New York to London, and how if you get off 1 degree, you end up, not a big deal, but if you get off 1 degree while you're sailing, it's a big dang deal, right? It's a couple of Navy guys, because I'm in Florida, a couple of Navy guys in the audience. They did the calculation for me. They came up and said, here, Clif, look here. If you leave New York sailing for London and you get off 1 degree, you land in the south of France. And I thought, how perfect, wine country, right? That's why you end up here. I end up a place I didn't intend to go, with people I don't know, a language I don't speak, in wine country. That's what happens to us here. If I allow myself to become self-directed again, and I sustain that self-direction, I become that 1 degree off here. And I end up in wine country. May look like country club malt liquor, but nonetheless, I end up there, right? I get back to that. And see, this step talks for me to be paying attention. Got to pay attention. Alcoholics Anonymous is miracle territory. I'll tell you that. Miracle territory here. And miracle territory calls for me to do that, to pay attention. Because if I'm self-absorbed, I miss all the newcomers coming in my path. If I'm self-directed, I'm back to me. I'm not watching the door. I'm not seeing who comes through the door. I'm not interested in that. What do I become? The reverse promise. I become interested in my little plans and my little designs. Once again, I'm going to plot how I'm getting back at everybody. Nuclear war by noon kind of deal. I'm just going there, right? And this book gives us in that deal, it tells us 4 really important things, I believe, in that couple of paragraphs. It says that this thought, the promises out of step 9, those foo-foo promises, it says this thought brings us to step 10. And it really gives us kind of a deal here. It says we are to continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right these new mistakes. Then it says we've entered the world of the Spirit. The world of the Spirit. Anybody have one of these? Probably not, but nonetheless, there's my wife. Isn't she beautiful? I love her. Yeah, I know. I showed Gwen last night. She goes, is that your daughter? Okay, all right. So I felt like a lech for sure, man. So I didn't feel bad. The UPS asked me one day that too. So anyway, it talks about here, it says that we must grow in our understanding and effectiveness. And then here at the bottom, it talks about that love and tolerance of others are our code. The reason I think this is important, because I need a phone. I'm not sure I need it. If you all would have promised to get rid of yours, I'd get rid of mine. That kind of deal, right? I saw a deal the other day. It said, when the phones were tethered to the walls, men were free. That's true. I believe it. I need probably to be able to answer the phone. I have emails on here and a calendar. That's primarily what I use. Now, it's got about 75 other things it does that I have no clue about what they do, right? I mean, I got a couple of things I figure out, But if they get a new one of these out, hell, I got to have it. I can't operate this one, but you get a new one, I got to have that thing, man. I just got to have it, because hell, I might know what to do with that, right? So I'll upgrade my material life. Why won't I be willing to upgrade my spiritual life here? Why won't I be willing to do that? Why won't I take the time to do what step 10 talks about, is to grow in my understanding and effectiveness? Why won't I do that? Why won't I develop this code, love and tolerance of others? Because here's the real I believe in this, in that juxtaposition in those two paragraphs. In order for me to grow in my understanding and effectiveness here with you, see, love and tolerance has to expand. If you walk in the door and I start judging you from the minute you walk in, man, my understanding of effectiveness has bottomed out already. I have no capacity for compassion. I have no capacity for empathy if I'm not willing to practice love and tolerance so I can grow that understanding and effectiveness. The book gives us those 13 non-drinking promises. See, I think as powerful as the promises are in step 9, I believe these non-drinking promises here that it talks about in step 10 are equally as powerful. Because one of the things it talks about in here, which I think is one, it says, I'm going to be placed in a position of neutrality. That I will have ceased fighting anyone or anything. What you do, that's none of my business. It's okay with me. I'm going to tell you, I was a guy that when I went through my tent and tambourine period at about 9 years sober, really evangelical, just really didactic. I wasn't a 12-stepper. I'm a damn 12-stomper. I'm telling you right up there, man. You would say something, you would do the mistake of referring to the 11th step nightly inventory as a 10th step. Hell, I'll chase you down after a meeting until you're killing people, right? I mean, I'm just that guy. You're killing people here. It's not very attractive, by the way. Doesn't bode well for the new guy, right? I'm a disunifier. I go back to sleep in AA thinking I'm doing really good here. Self-directed, I go back to sleep. Power nap in AA. Just back to sleep under the guise. And I'm really doing some cool stuff. I mean, I chaired our area conference, 1,800 people. I moved it out of Oklahoma City down to Norman. It was a big damn deal. I mean, we had the biggest conference we'd had in 25, 30 years. You know, I just had been elected our alternate area chair. So people are buying me a plane ticket, asking me to come tell my story. I mean, hell, I'm making a name for myself in an anonymous program. You know what I mean? And that right there should give you a clue of how sick I became in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm a disunifier. I'll talk bad about your group. I'll talk bad about you. I'm just totally a disunifier. Embarrassed myself in Alcoholics Anonymous. That's why don't throw away the clown suit. You're going to need it. I'm just saying, man. I got really sick here, right in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous. One day, my beautiful wife, Lori, called me and she said, Clif, I need to see you after work today. I thought, she's got a problem with one of her girls. I can help her. I'm gonna bring my game to the table, man. I'm going to help her. I got the message I was not expecting to receive. It's a message I had before, 9 years prior. She said, Clif, I don't know you. You're physically sober, but you're not spiritually sober or emotionally sober, and you got to go. And at 9 years sober, a big deal in AA, I got kicked out of my house one more time because I fell back to sleep in Alcoholics Anonymous. So subtle here. So subtle here. Believing I'm doing good. Right in the middle of AA, believing my own press clippings. Believing what the head's telling me. You know, I quit sharing my experience. I started telling people what to do. And I remember going to Don and talking to him. You ever said something to your sponsor and think, if I just change subjects, maybe he'll forget about that. I'll just move on. No big deal. Right? I remember saying to him, man, I just got to get back to basics. And it's like God himself came down with a little hammer and said, ting. Back to basics. Hell, it's all basics here. None of us ascend to any kind of guru status here. We just share our experience, man. None of us ascend to anything. Highest we ever get here is sober servant. That's it. Or maybe I should say the lowest we ever get here, sober servant. Right? That's it. I went and lived with a guy, and he spoon-fed me Alcoholics Anonymous for 3 months. He worked late. He didn't get home till like 9:30 at night. And we sat at his kitchen table every night. And he sang the music of Alcoholics Anonymous back to me, and he nursed me back to health in AA. You can go to sleep here. About 10 years ago, Lori and I got asked to do a Founders Day deal in Oklahoma City at one of the big clubhouses. And I knew it was time, and I just had to get up and admit it all. And I had to own how I had talked bad about your groups, how I had done all the things that they already knew. But I had to get up and cop to it in front of everybody. How free do you want to be here? There's nowhere else for me to go. If I'm not here, if I'm not with you, where am I going to go? I'll go back to sleep and I'll drink, and to drink is to die. I've got to stay here. I've got to put aside my pride and stay here. I've got to find a way to anchor and tether myself to you. The book tells me, it says that we don't have to do this very long, just for a lifetime. And so depending on how old you are, I don't know. But it also says something really that resonates with me. It says, this is how we stay in fit spiritual condition, that 10th step exercise. We're able to stay in fit spiritual condition, stay in the now when we do those things. When we watch, when we go to God, when we discuss it with somebody else, we make amends if necessary, and then we turn our attention to somebody who will help. It's just a pretty easy prescription, because hell, that's all we got. That's all we got is pray and help somebody. I mean, that's all we have here. It's not like we have some kind of, we're going to suddenly come up with some new formula. That's all we have, pray and help people. That's it. It's pretty simple and pretty basic here. But it says something here. When it talks about that, it says we get a daily reprieve, contingent, hinging on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. Now, in my world, in a lawyer world, a reprieve, that means a stay of execution. You ever watch those old Jimmy Cagney movies from the 40s, man? When Jimmy's in the electric chair and they're about to throw the damn switch. And somebody busts through the room with 1 minute left to midnight, right? Leslie knows. Busts through the room and says, don't throw the switch. The governor has issued a reprieve. It's a stay of execution. That's what a guy like me gets every day here. If I'm willing to pay attention, if I'm willing to stay in the moment, if I'm willing to practice these things, not perfectly, but if I'm willing to do my very best, I get a stay of execution. Why? For me to drink is to die. A stay of execution for a knucklehead like me. How did I get here? Radical grace, man. Just radical grace. I'm a guy that will tell you I pray and meditate, but I don't. I'm a liar in AA. I mean, I pray. Hell, I'm in the buckle of the Bible belt, so of course I pray, but I don't meditate. I'm a liar. You tell me I'm a liar in AA. When I got out of my sickness at 9 years sober, a guy was asking me this very question. And I thought, turning point, here we are once again. And I told him, well, I pray, but I don't meditate. And I told him why I don't meditate, because it's pretty simple. It's really easy. And if you had this experience, you wouldn't meditate either. When I was a kid, I watched this show called Kung Fu. You guys ever watch that show? David Carradine? Yeah. They had this little ashram, and he took a pillow, and they lit a candle, and they sat cross-legged, and they did that finger thing, right? Well, hell, I'm a tree stump. I don't bend like that, I don't go like that, so I can't meditate. So I told him I don't meditate. And he laughed like you did. And he said, Clif, that's certainly a way to meditate, but that is not the only way to meditate. And he began to talk to me about contemplative meditation. And he suggested something. He said, I want you to get this book. And he said, are you open? I said, of course. He said, I want you to get this book. And he said, I want you to give me 5 minutes. I want you to give me 5 minutes for a couple weeks, and then we're going to report back and see how this goes. So I said, okay, I'll play it. So I bought the book, and I read it, and I just sat and thought about what did the little story mean to me. Really, that's what it was. I mean, what does this little story mean to me? It's just a one-pager. What does this mean to me? And in that process, something happened to me. Somebody referenced it this weekend in Jung's letters. Talked about Jung writing to Bill. Talked about the thirst of the alcoholic is equated to the medieval thirst for God. Spiritus, or spiritus contra spiritum, whiskey versus God. And somewhere in that process, I got thirsty, not liquid thirsty, spiritually thirsty. And so as I began to read that book, one day it made a reference, a footnote to some other book. So hell, I just got on Amazon and ordered that right there on the spot, you know. And so I began to get this. At about 20 books, Lori came in and she said, I need the kitchen table back, man. I mean, I just got to have the table back. Right? Because if I read something that references something else, I got to go get that right now. I got to see what that means. Lori's one of these people that she just reads the book. And then she's done with that. She goes to the next one. She's not alcoholic at all, man. I'm just telling you, man, I got to have it all right now. And what happened to me is I began to develop this relationship with the power that has saved my life. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, 5 or 6 times. Has kept me from death's door. Not just coming to Alcoholics. I was on the edge of slipping to the next room. But I found the spiritual experiences in my life that ties and matches up to the spiritual experience in Alcoholics Anonymous, that I know for a fact that the power that I believe in today is real to me. And why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I just take moments of time out of my day to develop that relationship? To solid in with that relationship and that connectivity. Why won't I accept that radical grace and be willing to develop a relationship with this power that 10 and 11 keeps me awake and keeps me away from death's door one more time? That allows a guy like me, a knucklehead like me, unmerited, to cloak me in radical grace. Why wouldn't I do that? Why wouldn't any of us do that? Why wouldn't we invest as much time as possible to do that for the gifts we've been given? And I don't make any mistake about it. This is a gift. It's an absolute free gift. No charge. Absolutely gift. And what do I do with the gift? Now that I've been given it, Ralph's going to talk to us about what we do with that. So easy for us to get this gift and just go home. So easy. Got mine. Good luck getting yours. Right? Best of luck to you. Right? I'm going to take you on a little journey here. Just going to take me about 2 or 3 minutes. I want you to come with me, and then I'm going to be done. I want you for a moment, I want you to come back to the old country with me. I want you to go back to the holy city of Jerusalem. This is not a religious exercise, but just bear with me. I want you to go back to the holy city of Jerusalem with me. It's Palm Sunday. The city is packed. It's wall to wall with people. I mean, it is packed. People are hanging on the sidewalks. The Messiah is coming. And there's a lot of tension in that city. The Jewish people are excited, but some of them are worried. The Roman soldiers are on high alert because they don't know what's coming. And outside the city, at the gates of the city, the Messiah arrives on a donkey. The gates are opened and in rides the Messiah. And the crowd goes wild. And they begin to pushing, and they're cheering, hail to the Messiah, hail the Messiah. And what if, just for a moment, the donkey believed all of that was for him? And isn't that just like me? I mean, isn't that just like me? I get asked to go to a potluck, give a little talk. I think I'm really something, man. I get to be the GSR, the secretary of my group, you know, Somebody asked me to come serve on a committee. Come serve on this conference committee. We need you. Oh, God, that just builds me. I'm all about that, And isn't that like me? Isn't that like me? I get my blessings confused with my accomplishments. Everything I have in my life today should be stamped property of Alcoholics Anonymous. But what if in that moment the donkey thought that was all him? Yeah. Now let me tell you something. About 5 o'clock this afternoon, I'm going to get on one of those, as Steve Miller would say, one of those big old jet airliners. And I'm going to wing it back to Charlotte and then on my way back to Oklahoma City. And here's what I want you all to remember about Clif this weekend. That I know my task here was one thing and one thing only. That I was just to be the ass carrying the message. Thank you.